If you're anything like me, you're probably tired of manually booking events and scrambling with emails. So I decided to go into n8n and build a quick beginner-friendly AI agent to do it all for me. So booking is a complete time suck. You send 3 emails, 6 back and forths, and somehow you still end up double booked or need to set an hour aside to send out emails. Well, I got tired of all that nonsense and built something simple to fix it. A Telegram agent that manages all your contacts and bookings via SMS. Just send a message like book a call with Sarah this Wednesday at 11 a.m. From there, it grabs Sarah's contact info, adds it to your calendar, and can even send you a confirmation email. No switching apps and no more juggling calendars. This can easily save upwards of 3 hours a week just in scheduling and emails. And of course, it costs basically nothing to run. All it takes is one Telegram message to get this agent up and running. And if this sounds interesting to you, let's run a quick demo and then I'll take you guys into n8n to show you exactly how I built this. Alright, so as promised, I'm going to take you guys through a super quick demo of this agent. And as you can see, it works directly through Telegram, so you can interact with this entire thing via SMS. So this agent actually has 3 tools, and let me take you through them one by one. So the first one that I'm going to take you guys through is how it can book an event for you on your calendar. First of all, I'm going to ask this agent if it can book me an event with John this Friday at 2 p.m. As I get this message sent off, it's going to process in the background. And as you can see here, this agent responded back within a couple of seconds, confirming that it has indeed booked an event with John this Friday at 2 p.m. And if we head over to my Google Calendar, we'll see right here, I have an event booked with John at 2 p.m. And as you can see, I've kind of been chatting back and forth with this agent, booking other events as well. But essentially, every time I ask this agent to book me an event, it finds the contact information for that person, and it books that event at the proper time, while also adding a label and summary to that so that I know exactly what that event is going to be about. That alone saves tons of time when it comes to booking, especially if you have a high volume of people looking to set up appointments with you. So next up, I'm actually going to send that confirmation email out. And I'm going to specify a little bit of a subject here to see if the agent can actually compose us a solid email based off of this. So I just replied by saying, perfect, can you send a confirmation email to John to let him know that I'm excited to see him at 7th Street Cafe this Friday at 2? So let me get that sent off so it can find that email information, process it, and then get that email sent out. Alright, so I got my message back, and my agent replied saying, great, I've sent John this email confirming your brunch this Friday at 2 at 7th Street Cafe. Anything else? So let's hop over to my email and see what this agent came up with. Alright, so on one hand, I got the actual invitation from the meeting itself. And in addition to this, I got the actual email from the agent that I quote unquote personally sent out to him, saying, hi John, I'm excited to see you at 7th Street Cafe this Friday at 2. So in this case, John got a confirmation email from Google and a confirmation email from me, and all I had to do was send 2 messages on my Telegram. And as I said before, this could easily save you upwards of 3 hours per week when it comes to finding email addresses, drafting communications, sending confirmations, and actually booking events in your calendar. So if you guys managed to stick it through the entire demo, let me take you directly into this agent so that I can show you guys exactly how I set this up. So on a high level overview, I have this agent equipped with 3 tools that are located right here on the right. And I've also set it up with my Telegram triggers for both inputs and outputs so that I can interact with it on Telegram. And this is so powerful just because you can interact with this anywhere you have your phone. So let's dive right in and start off with this Telegram trigger. So this is actually pretty straightforward to set up if you haven't done so already. All you're going to need to do is come up here to your credential and set up a connection to your Telegram account. And as for trigger on, it's going to default to message, so you don't have to set anything up there. But what you are going to have to do is create a brand new Telegram bot. You'll probably want to go through the docs to see exactly how you set this up, but essentially you're going to locate this character called the botfather, and you can find him if you just go into search under Telegram and type in botfather. Once you set up a messaging channel with him, you're just going to follow the instructions for creating a new bot. You're going to assign a name to that bot, and then once the botfather replies with your API key, you're going to copy that and paste it in here to your Telegram credential, and that's essentially what's going to connect your account. It doesn't take all that long to do, and it's pretty straightforward. So after that, I've got my actual AI agent set up here. And there's actually a couple of things going on here. The main area of focus is going to be our system message. But first off, I've got this agent set to a tools agent, which is a good all-around setting for pretty much any build that you guys might be encountering. And second up, there are 2 options here for the source of the prompt that you're going to be sending this bot. The default is going to be connected chat trigger node. And if you're just using a basic chat trigger that you can use within n8n, like the agent that I built in my last video, then this default is going to be exactly what you guys need to run this bot. But in the case where you want to set this up with Telegram like I did here, you're actually going going to have to select define below. And then from there, you're going to simply run your Telegram trigger so that it can produce all of this data that you see here on the left-hand side. Once all of this information comes in, you're going to simply come down here to the bottom where it says text, and you're going to click that and drag it into the prompt user message field. This is actually what's going to instruct the agent to take our messages that we're sending in Telegram and pass those off directly to our AI agent here in n8n. And no need to worry about this JavaScript code here, because once all of these variables have been set on the side, all you need to do is find the one that you're looking for and drag and drop it. So next up is one of the most important things that I want to discuss with you guys in this video, which is the system message. And I actually kept this one pretty simple for this use case because I only had a couple of tools going on here. I was actually able to get these explanations pretty concise, and the agent has been performing pretty well with this exact prompt. I've broken this task down just into role and tools. So essentially I've set this up to be a helpful Telegram booking assistant, and I've instructed it that its job is to help the user book events, send emails, and retrieve email addresses from the user's contact base. And I've also included, for reference today, is the variable now. And what this is going to do is it's going to let the agent know exactly what date and time it is in this exact moment. And if you look over here on the right hand side, you see this date time variable, and this shows you exactly what is contained within here. And this variable is actually going to come in handy when it comes to our booking feature that I'm going to be showing you guys here in a moment. But for now, that's about it when it comes to the role for this agent. Next up, I actually listed all 3 of the tools that this agent has access to. And pay close attention to the explanations that I've included for each of these tools, because even though they're very concise, I've boiled each of them down so that the agent understands precisely how each tool functions and which cases it needs to use each tool for. So first up, I have the get contact tool. And by the way, I've included each tool name in quotations just so that the agent can better define and locate each of these tools as it's working through my tasks. So anyways, the get contact tool, I've instructed it is used to find the email addresses when they are not given by the user. I also instructed it to always use this step first if the user did not give you an email address. And this applies for booking events and sending emails. In other words, if the agent were to go through any of these tasks and the user just gave a name like I did in the demo, then the agent will use the get contact tool to find John in my contact base, locate his email, and then return it to me here so that I can use it to either send an email or to book a calendar event. Next up, I have the book event tool, and this one is pretty straightforward. It's just going to be used to book events with the given attendee, date, and time. And finally, the send email tool is going to be used to compose and send emails. I instructed the agent to be sure to compose a human-like email containing all of the details specified by the user. So everything that the user gives in the Telegram message is going to be used by the model to draft a message and to get that sent off to whatever contact the user is requesting. So this is pretty much it when it comes to the prompt. And of course, you can elaborate a lot more on this as you add more tools and more functionality to this agent. But as far as a beginner-friendly tutorial goes, this is about all you guys are going to need to know. So back in our canvas now, in order for this AI agent to work, you're going to need to have a couple of basic things going on. And the first is actually your AI chat model. And a lot of people are going to want to use OpenAI here. It's going to be the common use case and probably the most popular one that you're going to be seeing. But for me personally, I don't want to be spending all this money on OpenAI subscriptions and API tokens, so I prefer to use Google Gemini. And in case you guys haven't played around with this, I can vouch for it as a model that performs very well. And for most of the use cases I've had experience with, it performs extremely similar to GPT's models. And if you guys actually want to set this up for yourselves, all you need to do is set up your API credential with Google, and this is very straightforward to do. All you need to do is set up an account with Google Gemini, and then just create a custom API key and then paste it in for your credential. Once you have that set up, you're just going to come under here under the second dropdown and select your model. I usually use the basic version of Gemini 2.0 Flash, and this has been performing extremely well for me, and I've been pretty happy with the results so far. If you guys want to use GPT or Claude, or even DeepSeek, you could definitely feel free to do that, but for this example, I've built this entire agent off of Gemini. And again, this is a very simple node to set up, so there's not too much to see here. Next up, I've actually added a window buffer memory so that this agent contains a history of everything that you've discussed with it up until a certain message limit. So in this case, there isn't too much to set up when it comes to this. This is going to look familiar to my AI agent setup that I showed you guys a moment ago. So instead of having your connected chat trigger node for your session ID, you're actually going to click define below just like before. And then for your key, you're going to come down here onto the left. You're going to find chat ID, and then you're going to just click and drag that variable into your key section. And finally, for context window length, I've just set it at the default of 5 because I didn't need any more than that for this particular use case. But if you guys are not familiar with what this is essentially the number of messages that the agent is going to keep in its chat history. In this case, the model will remember the last 5 messages that you sent with it. And of course, you could play around with this. You can increase it to 8 or to 10 or even 12 or 15 if that's relevant for the use case that you're working on. And if you ever find that the agent is forgetting too much of of what you discussed, you can always come back in here into the settings and increase your context window later on. And again, this is about all there is to see for this memory section. And this is actually a pretty important step here because this allows us to give the agent memory of what we've discussed before, so we don't have to ask the same questions or provide the same context over and over again. Alright, so now that we've handled all of the basics when it comes to setting up our agent, let me jump into these 3 tools so that I can show you guys exactly how these are set up. And this will start to make more sense in relation to the system prompt that I took you guys through with our agent. So first up, let's check out our book event tool. And in case you guys aren't familiar, this node right here is actually triggering another workflow that I have here in n8n. So in order to create this, all I did was click the plus sign under tools and then click this first option here called call n8n workflow tool. And what this is going to do is it's going to connect me to this workflow right here, which I've also named book event. The interesting thing that I have going on here is that both of these tools are actually agents in and of themselves. Each one of these agents acts like an employee under my original agent, and it's able to call these whenever it determines that it needs to execute a particular task based off of whatever the user is asking for. So in this case, whenever I ask the agent to book me an event, it's going to determine that it needs to use this book event tool. It's going to call it with this workflow and then lead directly into this secondary agent. Essentially what's going on here is I have this set up with a trigger that actually allows this to be executed by another workflow. This trigger works in tandem with the other. As soon as the agent triggers this, it's going to send that data from that original agent directly into this one via this trigger here. And this is pretty simple to add to. All you have to do is add a trigger and then come down to the third from the bottom, where it says when executed by another workflow. And on this main agent side, all I had to do to set up this tool was to give it a name, which I just set to book event, and then added a quick description to let the main agent know exactly how this tool is going to be used and what capabilities it's going to have. And by the way, when you're naming your agent, make sure that you only use lowercase, because if you try to use uppercase letters or spaces, you're going to receive an error when you try to run this. Next up here, we're going to connect our source, and we're going to define that as database. And once we have all of this set up, all we're going to do is go under workflow and select the workflow that we want to connect this to from a list. All I need to do is locate my book event workflow and then select that. Then the system should be connected. There's a little bit more to establishing the connection between this agent and the secondary workflow, and that's a little bit beyond the scope of this video. So if you guys have questions about that, be sure to let me know, and I might even make another video about that sometime in the future. But for the time being, let's take a closer look at this booking agent so you guys can learn how it works. So let's start off again with our AI agent, and these first 3 are going to be set up exactly the same in comparison to the first agent. I have this set as a tools agent, and my source for prompt is going to be defined below as opposed to connected chat trigger. When it comes to inserting this query, this is the bit that's going to require a little bit more time when it comes to transferring data between workflows. So with that said, let's check out this system message. And this is actually going to be an extremely simple one, because in reality, there isn't all that much going on with this agent. So I've just prompted it to be a helpful assistant whose job is to use this booking tool that I've equipped it with to book an event for the name, date, and time given by the user. And I specified that if no duration is given, assume that the event will be 30 minutes. I've also reiterated the date and time variable here below, just in case there's any confusion when it comes to transferring the data between this agent and the original. So this is a very simple prompt, and there's not too much going on there. I have the secondary agent also hooked up to Gemini 2.0 Flash, and this is the exact same settings as I had in the previous one. This connection is going to be identical to the first. Lastly, I have this Google Calendar tool, which is what's going to be responsible for actually setting these appointments in my calendar. To get this to work, I had to set up a Google Calendar credential. And if you guys are familiar with how to set up a Gmail credential, this is basically the same. If you've managed to do that in the past, this isn't going to be too big of a deal for you. For our tool description, I've got that to set automatically. The resource is event, and the option is going to be create because we're going to be adding an event to my calendar. Then be sure to come under calendar here and then select whatever calendar you want to add your events to. In my case, I only had one calendar, so that's the one that I'm using for this example. Now, when it comes to actually the start and the end times for this event, I've selected these both to be defined automatically by the model. But you could also come over here into start and end and perform that same click and drag operation to fill all of this in. But just for consistency's sake, I like to let the model define all of these parameters. And in addition to that, I've also come down here under additional fields, added attendees, and then also selected that to be defined by the model just to keep everything clean and all the data comes back and forth in a consistent way. And lastly, I've also added an additional field of summary. And this is what's actually going to add the title to your event so that you know who the event is for and what the main theme of that event is going to be if that's relevant. So what this is going to do is when you're in your Google Calendar, you'll see right here, this event says meeting with John at 2 p.m. That's essentially the summary that you're going to get. If you don't add summary as an additional field, you'll simply get no title like these two events right here on Thursday. So it tends to be a lot better if you can keep things organized by having a summary for every event. So after you add all that stuff in, that's about it for this Google Calendar node. And to wrap up this workflow, I've added an edit fields node for our output. And this is essentially going to send a response back to our main agent, letting us know that the workflow was successful. In order to set this up, I've kept the default to manual mapping. And under fields to set, I just created one single field. I titled it response, kept the type to string, and then came over here to the left-hand side and clicked and dragged my output from the AI agent so that we can get that confirmation sent back to us via Telegram. So that about wraps up the book event tool, or the book event agent if you prefer to call it that. So let's jump back into our original agent and then take a look at the other two tools. So second up, I actually have a get contact tool, and this is going to function in pretty much the same way when it comes to connecting to a secondary workflow. Likewise, I've named this tool get contact, added a little description for this tool just so that the agent understands how to use it, set my database, and then selected get contact from the workflow that I want to connect this to. Now on the other end of this is going to very closely resemble our book event agent. We still have our when executed by another workflow trigger here, so that's going to be all the same. But when it comes to our AI agent, I actually have a slightly different prompt set up here. And again, this one is extremely simple. I've only added a couple of sentences here because this tool is going to be pretty self-explanatory. My system message is, you're a helpful assistant. Your job is to use the find email address tool to find email addresses for a given contact name. And again, in case you guys were wondering about these previous settings, they're going to be exactly the same as my book event agent. And similarly, I also have this hooked up to Gemini 2.0. So this entire system is running via Gemini. And in case you guys are wondering, it saves me a lot of money when it comes to actually executing this workflow and running these agents in comparison to OpenAI. So next up is a tool that I don't see too many people talking about, which is actually going to be our contact database. In case you haven't heard of Google Contacts, this is essentially a database that's hosted within your Google account that you can add contacts to, along with emails, phone numbers, job titles, and so on. Now, of course, there are other ways to hook up contacts to allow your agent to reference them, but I figured this would be pretty easy since everything is Google-based here when it comes to our calendar and our Gmail account. So this solution made sense. And in case you haven't used this before, of course, you can import contact lists here from elsewhere so that you don't have to input each one manually. But back to our automation. To get this set up, you're going to have to add another credential here, and this is going to be a Google Contacts account credential. And again, if you set up your Google Calendar and your Gmail account, it's going to be very similar to getting this credential set up too, so it should be pretty straightforward for you guys. For our tool description, I have that set automatically. Our resource is contact, and for our operation, I've got that set to get many. I don't have return all checked here, but I do have my limit set to 5. But of course, you could press this button here to have the model define this parameter if you want. You could even set this number down to 1. Now for our fields, there's a drop-down menu here, and the only one that I've selected are email addresses. And this is all that you really need to run this particular case. Now beneath that, be sure that you also turn on use query, and then you define that automatically by the model as well. And essentially what this means is it's going to take the query that you see right here on the left side, and this is going to be coming from our original agent as it retrieves that information from our Telegram message. It's essentially going to take that information, pass it through here via a query, run that through the contact database, and then return the specific bit of information we're looking for, which is an email address in this case. And if you have all of this set up exactly how I have it, this contact retrieval system should work just fine for you. And lastly, I also have an edit fields node set up here, and this is going to be exactly the same as the edit fields node that you saw in the previous example. All of these settings and the JSON output are going to be exactly the same as before. And again, this will return the model output that you see here on the left back to our original agent so that it can tell us that our message has been successfully sent so that it can return this information to us in Telegram. The last tool I have this agent equipped with is actually pretty simple, which is just a Gmail send message tool. So I've set this up with my Gmail account credential here. And again, if you guys have been following this tutorial, this entire thing is Google based, so it's all pretty straightforward and pretty consistent to get set up. For our description, I've got that to set automatically. Resource is message. Operation is going to be send, which is going to be down here at the bottom. And when it comes to who to send the message to, what the subject is going to be, and what the actual message content is going to be, I have all of those checked to be defined by the model. This is going to allow us to take the email address that the previous tool found, input that in here. The model will handle defining a subject and drafting message for us. So all of that is going to be taken care of, and it's going to be pretty straightforward. If you want to customize how this message is sent, you could specify that in the main system prompt for your agent. Now the last thing that I'm setting up here under options is append n8n attribution. Be sure that you check this off, because if you don't, every message that you send is going to have a little tag at the bottom that says this message was automated by n8n. And in case you want to be announcing that you're sending automated messages every time, I would recommend turning that off. And lastly, I've also included sender name as Mike. And this allows us to personalize the message a little bit more and make things come across a little bit more casually. And that about wraps up our Gmail node here, so also pretty straightforward. Lastly, I wrapped this entire agent up by adding an output here, which is a send text message node by Telegram. And if you want to find this, all you have to do is search for Telegram, scroll to message actions, and then select this one right here where it says send a text message. Once you have that added, it might take you a little bit of trial and error to actually get this up and working. But in order to get this set up, you're gonna again get your Telegram credentials set up in here, set your resource to message, then your operation is going to be down here at the bottom, which is send a message. Then for your chat ID, you're gonna make sure you run the previous nodes again so that you can generate all of this data here on the left-hand side. For your chat ID, you're gonna simply come down here to chat, locate ID, click and drag this variable into your chat ID just like before. And for our text, again, we're gonna come down here to the left-hand side, scroll to the bottom, locate our text, which is gonna contain our message from the AI agent, then click and drag that into our text output here. And once again, I have append n8n attribution off for my additional fields. Because in the exact same way as this works in an email, if you leave this on, every single text message that you get back from your agent is going to be announcing that this is an automation by n8n. And I personally prefer to have that toggled off to have a better user experience. And if you guys have noticed throughout this tutorial, all the information from previous executions is going to be found here on the right-hand side. And all of the variables that you can input into the center category are going to be located on the left. And with all of that said, this about wraps up the Telegram connection for this agent. So when we actually take a step back from this, the implications for this are actually very strong because you can access this entire agent and complete all of these tasks just by sending a message on your phone within Telegram. So this means that no matter where you are, as long as you have your phone with you, you can send messages and get work done with this agent without having to actually have access to your computer. And when you actually imagine how much time this can save, depending on what industry you happen to be in, this could show massive upsides for just about anybody. And of course, this was a beginner-friendly tutorial. I did my best to kind of explain things in a very simple way and not let these tools or this agent get too complex for this particular case. But if you're interested in diving deeper into this can be customized way further than what you're seeing here. You can add more tools, you can add complexity to each tool, and you can even prompt your agents to be able to accomplish more nuanced tasks. No matter what capabilities you give this agent, you will always be able to access this via Telegram because all you're doing is triggering it with an SMS message. All of the backend is being handled between n8n and all of these software connections here. So I hope you guys got some value out of this video, and I hope you're able to follow along with these instructions. By the way, if you happen to want a particular AI solution built for you or for someone you know, be sure to connect with me with my links down in the description so that I can help you and so that we can have a little bit more of an in-depth discussion about this. So I appreciate you guys for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know down below, and I'll catch you all in the next one.